What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode number 8 of the Talkin ATL Hawks podcast. Of course, this is your boy Chase, and I'm here with my brother Andrew and my brother from West Georgia, John Joyner, who is just coming back from New Orleans. Took a little trip there to watch Georgia Southern play in their bowl game. But you know, tough loss for they're the Eagles, right?
Yeah, Eagles. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to get that wrong. Yeah, the Georgia Southern Eagles. But you know who else took a tough loss? Matter of fact, took back-to-back tough losses after their loss in the NBA Cup semifinals to the Milwaukee Bucks. And that is, of course, the Atlanta Hawks. Of Talkin ATL Hawks. Today, we're going to be discussing the two games that has happened since our last episode, which was this past Thursday, where the Hawks lost 133-126 in an overtime banger against Victor Wembanyama, Chris Paul, and the San Antonio Spurs on the road. And then they came back home last night. We're recording this on Sunday, of course. We came back home last night to host the Memphis Grizzlies and got embarrassed, 128-112. And I can assure you that the game was a lot worse than the score actually shows. And then we'll talk about what the Hawks can do moving forward to counter this really, really tough week. Because, of course, we're hosting the Timberwolves tomorrow night, and that will be our last game until after Christmas, where we play the Bulls and then the Miami Heat, all three of those games at home. So this is a really big homestand coming up for your Atlanta Hawks. So they're against really good teams. Well, I say really good. I wouldn't call the Timberwolves or the Heat actually really good. Actually, they're all against mediocre teams.
Wow. Hold on. Let's take a step back there.
Who out of the Timberwolves, Bulls, and Heat, who are you saying is not mediocre?
The Timberwolves and the Heat?
That is absolutely insane. The Timberwolves, actually, I'm sorry.
The record is. The record it doesn't show how great they've been the past couple of years, but so Chase has a point. They are mediocre this year, but they could turn it around like that.
Oh, I completely agree, but they are so mediocre that their star, the Ant-Man, actually called out their team for being mediocre. In their recent loss of the Knicks, at the press conference, he said he literally said this is straight up mediocrity. He said we have no game plan. He said we are so out of sync. He said every time we go out and play the game, all we know is I'm shooting the ball and Julius Randle shooting the ball. We know nothing else is going to happen. He called out his team for being mediocre. No, I didn't mean to start this episode on a little rant, but for all you naysayers out there, Joyner, you are absolutely right. The Timberwolves can click in an instant. But as of right now, as of coming into this Monday night game against the Atlanta Hawks, the Timberwolves are straight up mediocre.
First of all, you've been rambling on for 3 minutes. Let the other people on the podcast.
I was about to pass it to y'all and ask y'all how y'all's week has been. But you had the audacity to try to defend the Timberwolves for not being mediocre.
Because what's the only thing you got to understand is being mediocre and playing mediocre are two completely different things.
Oh, I agree. But when your star player calls your team mediocre, I think that's up for no dispute. Andrew has left the podcast. Joyner, how's your week been?
Oh, it's been good. Just some partying in New Orleans this past weekend. I tried to find DeJounte Murray and tell him I'm sorry for that we traded him, but he was nowhere to be found. I thought he'd be at a bar because of how bad the Pelicans have been playing, but like I said, it was a tough Georgia Southern game that I went to go see because my parents went to Georgia Southern, so my dad got us tickets to go to the bowl game.
That's dope, bro.
But other than that, it was a nice little trip. I wasn't able to watch the Hawks games unfortunately because of this trip, and I'm looking forward to for y'all's input.
Absolutely, man. And this is a first for this podcast. This is the first time that a member has deliberately got up and left the podcast. But I'm going to bring him right back. Andrew, sit your butt down because I'm going to ask you how your week has been.
Oh, I get to talk now? Yo, this is crazy. Okay, wow. Thank you, Chase. I thought I was just going to stand here.
It's a season of giving, man. It's a season
I
of
thought
giving.
I was just going to stand here and smile, but it is very comforting to know that you finally going to let me talk.
Hey, don't call out some bull crap and I won't have to rant.
Well, see, that's the problem. I was trying to defend myself, and then you just jumped in and took over again.
Okay.
So can I defend myself? I feel like I have to ask for permission.
Yes,
Okay.
you can defend yourself. Defend yourself.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Chase, do I have your permission to defend?
You have my
myself?
blessing. You have my blessing.
Thank you. Thank you. So what I was saying is being mediocre and playing mediocre are completely different things.
I agree.
We have seen Golden State Warriors teams who have won NBA Finals. Those specific teams play mediocre basketball. It happens. It's a season of progression. It's a season of grind. It's a season of step backs. No matter what your record is, no matter what players you have on your team, you're going to see mediocrity at some point. It's just the grind and grit of the season. It's 82 games. Not all 82 games can be perfect. It is blatantly obvious that the Timberwolves are in a slump, but the ground that the Timberwolves have submitted themselves in Minnesota, from what we've seen the last 2 years, under great head coaching, under great star play. I know, and one thing that you also got to remember is this trade between that involved Karl Anthony Towns and Julius Randle has been a setback for the Minnesota Timberwolves. It hasn't really been a setback for the Knicks, because I think the Knicks are giving players like Jalen Brunson what Julius Randle couldn't. But Julius Randle, on the opposite end, cannot deliver to the Timberwolves, like players like Anthony Edwards, what Cat was offering, because Julius Randle only specializes on one spot on the court, as to Karl Anthony Towns is lethal from everywhere. So I think what we're seeing from the Timberwolves is not mediocrity, because they for sure do have the talent to be one of the best teams in the Western Conference. I think what we're seeing is the Timberwolves still, at this point in the season, trying to figure out how to adapt and how to set their new identity with a guy like Julius Randle. But I can assure you that the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'm saying right now on the podcast right now, I can assure you the Timberwolves will be in the Western Conference Finals this year. And then we will go back and I'll ask you again, are they mediocre?
Okay.
As for the Miami Heat, we have seen this same story from this Miami Heat team time in and time out. They will start the season right at skimming that 500 mark, and then at some point after Christmas break, they will find their rhythm, and it will carry them, as we've seen it go as far as the NBA Finals. Basically, what I'm saying is you're calling teams with a lot of not mediocre talent. You're calling those teams mediocre when it is way too early in the season to say that.
Okay,
way too early in the season to say that.
If you rewind the episode, I literally said that coming into this game, they are mediocre. I didn't say that. I disagree with Joyner. They had the potential to click and turn around. I said coming into this game, they are playing mediocre basketball.
Doesn't
that
make
is
it mediocre.
listen, that is true. That what I said was true. But we are not here to talk about the Timberwolves, because we are not Timberwolves fans. We are Atlanta Hawks fans. And Joyner, I know you were like you just mentioned, you were at the Georgia Southern game Thursday night. And so I know you weren't able to watch this game live, but Thursday night, the Hawks were, of course, in San Antonio taking on Victor Wembanyama. We previewed this in the last episode, talking about it was the battle of the Frenchmen.
The battle of the baguettes.
The baguettes, absolutely.
Baguettes. You have to say
the battle of the baguettes.
There you go.
Between two Frenchmen who were first-round picks. Of course, you had a couple years ago Victor Wembanyama to the San Antonio Spurs, and of course, this previous draft, Zachary Richardson to the Atlanta Hawks. And if you want to compare how the two players played side by side, the points definitely goes to Victor Wembanyama, because he went absolutely haywire on the Atlanta Hawks, dropping an astonishing stat line that included 13 for 24 shooting, 7 for 15 from beyond the arc. And he had a total of 42 points, 4 blocks, 2 steals, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. No, it wasn't a triple-double like he's prone to getting, but it was a 42-point dominant performance against the Atlanta Hawks, ultimately bolstering them to a 133-126 win. Because when I tell you the Hawks held him to 0 points in the third quarter. I think he maybe got 2 points actually in the third quarter. But when it hit the fourth quarter, he was absolutely automatic.
But it wasn't just Victor Wembanyama that lost the Atlanta Hawks this game. I'm going to shoot this one to Andrew first because I know, like I said, Joyner, you were at the Georgia Southern game, so you didn't get to watch this live. Me and Andrew were watching this live, so Andrew, I'm going to shoot over you first, and then Joyner, I'll shoot it to you. But Andrew, other than Victor Wembanyama, what was another reason the Atlanta Hawks lost this heart crusher to the San Antonio Spurs? Because me and you both know, and Jordan, you know this too, the Hawks should have ran away with this one.
Well, first of all, I want to point out that this game was very, very sloppy from both sides of the basketball. And I'm not saying sloppy in terms of turnovers. There actually was a lot of turnovers in this game. I'm calling it sloppy in terms of foul trouble. Both teams, for all 4 quarters, always seem to be edging that bonus mark. They both got almost 25 free throws in this game, and you can't. And I would include overtime in this, but still, heading into overtime, both teams were near that 20 free throw mark, and so I want to point that out first. Another thing I want to point out is it was a very sloppy performance, I'll say, by the Hawks in the first quarter. We were really struggling to find consistency on the offense side of the ball, and players like Victor got off to a really hot start, just really asserting their dominance in the paint. And Clint Capella, I mean, we all know Victor has a size advantage on anyone, that tries to stand with him in the paint. But Clint Capella, I think my biggest issue with him is he couldn't box out on Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama was already getting so many offensive boards in that first quarter that was alluding to way too many second chance points, and it just caused trouble. And because of that, the Hawks found themselves down by double digits. Second quarter swing where the Hawks run away with the game, and we actually win the quarter by 13, giving us a small edge over heading into halftime. And that's when we saw players like Trae Young really start to find his rhythm, rack up those assists. He finished with 23 points and 16 assists, but he was dishing out those assists to players like Jalen Johnson on those little, pick and roll lobs, that in the paint, some to Capella as well. But then you add the biggest surprise of the night, Larry Nance freaking Jr. with 21 points, 6 of those shots coming from beyond the arc with 13 rebounds. A very impressive double-double performance that showcased a lot of consistency and a lot of reliability for Trae Young to dish it out to him beyond the arc when Trae was, gravitating all that defensive pressure when he drove into the paint. It was beautiful basketball. Then comes down the stretch. And then, Victor, I'm not, trying to, throw Victor under the bus or, overshadow his performance, because no question he was the player of the game. I don't think Victor is the sole reason why the Hawks lost.
Victor's not at all the sole reason the Hawks lost.
I'm giving that nod to CP3, especially in overtime. Because sure, Victor, asserted his dominance. Sure, Victor was hard to stop in that fourth quarter with his insane 3 balls and his insane dunks. But Chris Paul, in the final minutes of overtime and final minutes of the fourth quarter and throughout overtime, was phenomenal. Was absolutely phenomenal. Of course, I think we do have to talk about how the Hawks sent it to overtime in the first place.
Oh, we'll get to that.
But I'll let you spit on that a little bit more, Chase. But I just want to talk about CP3 in that overtime. Was playing like he was back on the LA Clippers in Lob City. And why would he not when he has Victor in the paint? I mean, he was doing what we see Trey do in this modern day era of basketball. He was utilizing his point guard presence to gravitate defense away from their marked men into the paint, when he was playing around with at the wing. And it always led to Victor being one-on-one in the paint. And that's just an unstoppable force. And then, of course, he had that stupid 4-point play that really just
that was disgusting.
Put a bow on this, present for San Antonio. But I also want to just read his stat line, and maybe you'll kind of understand why I think he was a little more effective down the stretch. He had 12 points. All he had. This was not a scoring performance for Chris Paul.
But Chris Paul, especially late in his career, hasn't been really known as a scorer. He's just been a prime-time playmaker.
But where he thrived was with his 8 assists and 4 steals, because the Hawks really weren't having any turnover issues until the Spurs needed it most, which came in that fourth quarter and in overtime. So my analysis on the Spurs: Victor, you were no question player of the game, but Chris Paul was the matchmaking heaven for for Victor. And I think that's why San Antonio was such an attractive landing spot for Victor this late in his career. Because who would not? With a play style like Chris Paul, who would not want to play with a guy like Victor Wembanyama? It was just a recipe that the Hawks couldn't stop.
And so, Joyner, I'm going to shoot this one to you because I know you weren't able to watch the game live. I know, obviously, you went back, look at the stats, look at the recap. But I know for a fact, Joyner, that you witnessed, we all witnessed, has to be, so far this season, the dunk of the year by DeAndre Hunter on Victor Wembanyama. And this wasn't just
Eiffel Tower.
This wasn't just a highlight play. This was a key moment that ultimately sent the game to overtime. Joyner, I want you to break that down for us and let the Hawks community know just how stunning that entire sequence was.
I mean, first of all, and y'all know this, at the beginning of the podcast, when we first started this, I was all for trading DeAndre Hunter to get some bigger pieces.
Hey, I was too.
I'm always going to take my time out to say I'm sorry, DeAndre. Please do not be traded. Please do not leave the Atlanta Hawks. We love you here, and I am sorry for doubting you. We love you, and please keep doing what you're doing. But no, no, that dunk was pretty incredible. Victor Wembanyama is 7'4" or 7'5". He's the tallest player in the league right now.
He's literally the Eiffel Tower.
Maybe second tallest. I don't know, but he's very hard to dunk. He's very hard to dunk on, and that dunk,
it was ridiculous.
Wow. That's why I just apologize to DeAndre Hunter. I was not familiar with their game. I am sorry.
But it was like DeAndre Hunter treated Victor Wembanyama like he was dunking on Chris Paul. Like he went up to the rim like there was no chance Victor was stopping that. And that takes big old balls. Like Dan.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. Oh, go ahead, Jordan. Go ahead.
I mean that end too. That end, but like also like this is also Wemby's second season like in the league. This is also his second season. DeAndre's been playing for
5 years. Drafted in 2019, right? He was drafted in 2019, right?
So yeah, so about maybe 5 years then. I mean, DeAndre has experience. Wemby. We're not in. Wemby's not in his prime right now. He's close, but he still has room to grow.
That's the scary part. He's only going to get better. That is the scary part. And Joyner, I'm going to defend me and you here because I know you said that we were, all in favor. Edgy, I think you were too, all in favor at the start of this podcast, right before the season started. We were all in favor in the Hawks trading DeAndre Hunter. And the reason being, not because Hunter was playing bad by any means in the previous years. He was playing great ball. The problem was he couldn't stay healthy. And we talked about this at the start of the podcast. Hunter, all throughout his career, has had such a bad issue in staying healthy, but when he was healthy, he's playing like he is now. Probably not to this extent because I think this is the best version of DeAndre Hunter we've ever seen. Absolutely. But he was absolutely balling. But we were so concerned with his health that we were thinking trade him now while he's still young so we could get some good pieces. Since he can't really go a full season with because of his injuries. But he has been. I know he's obviously missed a couple games because of minor injuries, but for the most part, he has been pretty much healthy the entire season, and we pray that he stays healthy like this all season long. But because he's been healthy, he's been able to stay in the gym, practicing, balling, growing this chemistry with this team. He is turning into the best version of DeAndre Hunter we've ever seen. Matter of fact, he is more than on pace to be the Sixth Man of the Year award, averaging 23 off the bench, right behind Zachary Richardson.
He's averaging 20.1. So,
20.1. Yeah, 20.1 right behind his Zachary Richardson. He was continuing to grow and get better. So, because we are seeing this now and knowing the potential, we've known the potential he has when he stays healthy, but actually see it in fruition is just a completely completely different perspective switch because now, like you said, Joyner, we are begging the front office, we are begging Landry Fields, please don't listen to us and keep DeAndre Hunter as long as you can, as long as he can stay healthy, and like he's been.
He's just playing with a different intensity, like a different overall confidence, and I think that was showcased perfectly in that final play, in that dunk on Wembanyama to send the game in overtime. Because off the inbound, they dish it out to Trey off the inbound like they always do. And what I absolutely loved, no, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. They gave it to DeAndre Hunter right off the inbound. And what I absolutely loved what the Hawks did is as soon as the ball went to DeAndre Hunter, which DeAndre Hunter was right at the half-court line. Like, he was way back there when they gave it to him originally. And Trae Young came around the Capella screen to the top of the key. So where do the Spurs defense think the ball is going? Trae Young, right off the screen. So the inbound defender and the defender that was bouncing off the screen of Capella and the guy that was guarding Capella all gravitated towards Trae Young, leading the right side of the wing right open for DeAndre Hunter. So immediately, he just took off straight to the paint, and the only guy that was standing in his way was Wembanyama, but he was running with so much poise and so much traction that there was no way that he wasn't going to go take that all the way to the rim, and that's exactly what he did. And he's playing like a star player. He could easily be in the starting lineup for half of the teams in the NBA.
Absolutely.
But here he is averaging 23 off the bench, and I couldn't be more happy.
And if we didn't have Zachary Richardson, he would be starting with the Atlanta Hawks.
Exactly.
Yeah. So going back to Wemby real quick, we all aware that Wemby has now past 200 3-point shots, and he got that faster than Curry, Ray Allen, and James Harden.
Crazy.
I mean, he's 7'5", and he's lethal.
Crazy.
And he's lethal from free.
That stat doesn't even seem real. It's ridiculous.
Like, Spurs cannot trade that man. Like, there's nothing you could do to get Wemby off from the Spurs.
He's the new Tim Duncan, just with more to his archetype. That is basically what the Spurs have right now.
He's probably a taller Tim Duncan that can.
Oh, he is, better. Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. But I was gonna make one more point about DeAndre Hunter actually, and I'm sure y'all can agree with me here. But it's kind of piggybacking off what you said, Andrew, saying that DeAndre Hunter is playing with a different intensity, and he's playing with a completely different attitude as well. Because I mean, this is a throwback to the Lakers game. This is a guy mocked him. This is mocking the king straight to his face. And then after the dunk, when he dunked Victor Wembanyama, he didn't hesitate to stand over him and talk smack right to his face. So this isn't a DeAndre Hunter who play style-wise is just playing with a different electricity. He is just attitude-wise staring down the best players in the league, the best players in history, and with no fear letting them know that DeAndre Hunter, when you go up against him, he's going to give you the best of himself. He's going to give you all the attitude in the world. He doesn't care what your name is, who you are. He's DeAndre Hunter, and he's going to let you know it. And I am absolutely here for it. The Hawks community is here for it. And Hunter, if you're listening to this podcast like we know you do, don't change. Keep that intensity going. And because this, like I said, I can't say now, this is the best version of DeAndre Hunter we have ever seen. But go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I know we're getting excited. We're getting a little jittery. But I am going to have to kind of dim in the mood a little bit because another important thing that needs to be noted that has nothing to do with the Spurs game. We're moving past that now. But after the Spurs game, it was officially announced that the Hawks' second-year player, last year number 1 overall pick out of Michigan, Kobe Buffkin, was officially ruled out for the entire season with right shoulder instability. Now, I know right off the grip, you guys might be wondering, like, well, why do we really care? Because aside from the very start of the year, we really haven't seen Kobe Buffkin get a lot of minutes coming off the bench. But the reason why that punches you in the gut is because of what we saw in that Grizzlies game when Trae Young and Yeke Okongwu were all ruled out for that game, and we had to use
Vit.
Vucevic, Vit. We had to use Vit.
And Kean Wallace.
And Keaton Wallace as the backups for Trae Young, and the backup for the backup because, of course, Kobe Buffkin, who would have been a nice asset to have because he's got great games, especially in the mid-range area, but we couldn't utilize that to our advantage. In moments when you have a lot of injuries going into a game against teams like the Grizzlies, and it sucks because it's going to put a halt on Kobe's development because again he's only a second-year player, and it's really your sophomore season when you really start to set the foundation of what kind of NBA career you're going to flower into, and now it's going to have to be a setback. But good news is it's nothing super, career threatening. He is expected to make a full recovery by the start of next year, and he's supposed to make a full recovery before the regular season comes to an end. But at that point, there's really going to be no point in getting him warmed back up because the Hawks will be getting ready for the postseason, hopefully. But that means we'll have the entire offseason, the entire summer to get back into perfect physique to be utilized next season. It hurts. It dims the light a little bit. Hate it for such a young guy, but hopefully this is only the beginning to a great journey for him.
Yeah, Andrew, you're absolutely right. And, I don't mean to sound like a broken record here because I know I've said this so many times this podcast, especially earlier. But Kobe Buffkin, especially towards the end of last year when his minutes really went up, we just saw the potential flourish out of this young man. And
especially on the defensive end of the ball.
This year, especially with every opportunity he's given, though his minutes haven't been great this year, he has showcased so much talent, so much adversity. Like you said, intensity on the defensive end. He's been put up against some really good point guards in the league, and he has really moved along the screens. His communication's there. When a teammate calls a switch, he's on it instantly. There's no miscue in that communication, and that's something you love to see out of a young kid. A bright side you really love to see out of a draft pick just a couple years ago that could play an important role later down the road for your franchise. So like you said, injuries don't have to halt a career. It all depends on how the player responds. And I believe that Kobe Buffkin's going to respond well to his injury. He's going to keep the grind going. And when he does make that full recovery, I believe we're going to see him back and better than ever. But Joyner, did you want to comment on that whole situation with Kobe?
No, man, just prayers to Kobe. Hope he, like we said, he's expected to make a full recovery, and hopefully he's back and better than ever for next season.
Absolutely, and so we're gonna move past that now. Last night from the time we're recording this podcast, the Grizzlies came to town, and we were expecting a Trae Young and Ja Morant absolute classic
Peak basketball
down in the Peach State. But as the game got closer, of course, Trae Young was officially rolled out. So was Ja Morant for the Grizzlies, but not just Trae Young on the Atlanta Hawks side. We were also missing Nneka Okongwu as well, and who else was it? It was just
those two.
Just Trae Young and Nneka Okongwu were rolled out for. I know you weren't able to watch it live again because of your trip, but I'm going to actually shoot to you first, and I want you to let the Hawks fans just kind of recap this game, how it went down in Atlanta. And like I said, though we only lost by 16, it felt like we lost by 40. But Joyner, give your thoughts on this game and let the community know how dreadful of a scene this was in Atlanta last night.
Yeah. So no one. It's like no one in our starting lineup really like set that tone for us. It was more of again DeAndre Hunter off the bench dropping 26 points. Zachary had 10, Johnson had 13, Capella had 8, Dyson had 15, and then surprisingly, which I don't know why we didn't put Hunter in the line over this guy, but Vit started the game, which I'm really I like Vit. Vit, he's my favorite guy that doesn't get to play a lot, but I think Vit's a good. I think Vit fits well for the Hawks. I personally like Vit.
I do too.
When we signed him again this offseason, I was so happy. I really like the guy.
Yeah, I do too. I really think so. Here's my biggest concerns for this game, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. Because right off, for face value, you look at this game, no John Morant for the Grizzlies, no Trae Young, and no Yeke Kongwu. Right off for face value, you're like, well, that doesn't mean the Hawks have, like zero shot to win this game because A, John Morant's not playing, and B, we have seen the Hawks without Trae Young take down teams like the Boston Celtics on the road. So it's not like the Hawks' value decreases all the way down to like 50% without Trae Young because we have playmakers in Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and like you said, Vic. We have to, stabilize the Hawks enough, especially without a John Morant-less Memphis Grizzlies team. But what we saw showcased in this game is the backups for Trae Young and the backups for John Morant were not on the same level. Scottie Pippen Jr., obviously the great legend Scottie Pippen's, offspring, was freaking phenomenal for the Grizzlies last night. I'm talking about, first of all, everybody on that Grizzlies team could not miss beyond the arc in that first half. So much so to the point where we saw players like, I think his name is Jalen. No, it wasn't Jalen Wells.
Desmond Bane.
It wasn't Desmond Bane. I'm going to find this guy.
Who are you talking about?
Give me one moment. Santi Aldama. There's Aldama. I don't know how to say that name. He's obviously not. Yeah, he's obviously not from America, though. But it got to the point where we saw a three towards the very end of the second half where there was limit time left on the shot clock. He had like a second to get the ball off. He was fading away out of bounds in the left corner, chunk up a prayer, made it nothing but net. And that was really the cherry on top of this crap.
That play right there, if you could sum up that entire night in one play, it would have been that one right there.
But what I don't like what I saw from this Hawks team without Trae Young, because we know they know how to function without Trae Young, but there was way too many terrible decision making.
Yep.
I think that's really what it came down to, and that's what led to the Grizzlies getting 43 points in the first quarter because we were hand-feeding them the ball. I mean, we had so many first forced turnovers down the court on these idiotic full-court passes and
double coverage.
And some passes would be like Ben Wallace would be on the left. Not Ben Wallace. Well, I wish we had been prime Ben Wallace. That'd be awesome. Keaton Wallace on the left wing would see Jalen Johnson in the corner, and he'd try to baseball pass it to him, and it'd go like 4 feet over his head. Yep. It just seemed like the Hawks were not in rhythm. We're not in sync last night. And another thing that I didn't like on the defense side of the ball was, first of all, Zach Edey. Look, can we go ahead and trade Capella already? Because Zach Edey.
Well, hang on. I'm not ready to say that.
Zach Edey's 7'4". He's taller than Wemby.
But here's my problem with that. Zach Edey, the rookie out of Purdue, every single time Pippen Jr. would feed Edey the ball, Clint Capella, for some reason, would try to contest the shot early, get off of his feet, and give Edey an easy post move to get right to the glass every single time. And it really started to make me question if Capella forgot how to play true center basketball. Because though the height advantage is, swung towards Edey's way, you can contest a shot without getting off your feet.
Yeah.
It is doable.
Yeah, that's what they're supposed to. That's what they teach you in basketball.
And that's why losing Onyeka Okongwu was such a big blow, because when Clint Capella had to get his rest, the Hawks were outmatched in size. It was a double the size advantage that the Grizzlies already had without Capella in the game, and it just led players like Zach Edey and even I can't remember who the other guy was. There was another guy off the bench that was terrorizing us in the paint. I think it was Laravea, but I have to fact check that. But regardless, the paint presence was weak with Capella in the game, and it was non-existent without Clint Capella in the game. And it was a recipe for disaster.
Well, Andrew, you mentioned Zach Edey being a problem for the Hawks defensively. I think there is an even bigger problem for the Hawks defensively, not Zach Edey. I think it was actually our horrific defense along the perimeter. And early in the season, the Hawks had this problem bad. They had problem not especially defending the three-point shot on transition, but just in general through offensive possession. We let man on mark when we would do a switch defensively. We wouldn't mark the man, and it just took simple ball movement for the opposing team to find a wide open player along the perimeter. But
the Hawks were on this big winning streak where they formed more of a complete team, and their chemistry grew not just offensively but also defensively. And because of that, that problem started to die down. But in this last previous game against the Grizzlies, all those problems arose again. And it wasn't just defending the three bad on transition. It was just through simple possessions. The Grizzlies would pass around, get to Edey in the paint, he'd get on the post, and if he didn't have the shots, he always had a man either wide open in the corner in the top of the key. And this was happening time after time after time after time after time again. And the Hawks made no defensive adjustments, and it really made me aggravate at Quinn Snyder. Now, I love him as a head coach. He is a great offensive-minded guy, but defensive, he doesn't have the best defensive mindset, and that is no question. And I was just confused on if me and Quinn Snyder were seeing the same thing, because I saw this happen time and a time and a time again, and especially became a problem with Desmond Bane and Pippen Jr., who, by the way, had a combined, 44 points, I believe? Combined 45 points, excuse me, which helped the Grizzlies cruise past the Atlanta Hawks. And Quinn Snyder just made no defensive adjustment. Now, he did do one thing, though, which sort of worked out until it didn't. He switched Dyson Daniels on Scottie Pippen Jr., and so that slowed him down momentarily, but because he went on to Scottie Pippen Jr., that's when Desmond Bane took the front of the lead, and he started dominating the Hawks offensively, and this just created a downward spiral that the Atlanta Hawks could not stop, and it just got ugly and ugly and ugly and ugly, and like you said, the Hawks had a lot of turnovers offensively. Their shot decision was terrible. We chunked up a lot of unnecessary threes, and it was just the most chaotic performance I've ever seen out of the Atlanta Hawks. Severely disappointing. And with the Timberwolves coming in on Monday night, I am praying that we're going to have Trae Young and Nneka Okongwu back, because if that game showed anything, it showed how important Trae Young's playmaking is to the Atlanta Hawks offense. Because when he's not on the court, when he's not in the entire game, the chemistry offensively is just desolate, and it is horrible, and it was saddening to see, and I'm praying for a big rebound for the Atlanta Hawks against the Timberwolves. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you really just kind of gave the whole analysis for why the Hawks fell apart so quickly. I mean, the game was over at halftime, and even when the Hawks had life in the third quarter, that's when the bad transition turnovers will occur again, and it would get us right back to, the starting point that we were at halftime, and just give us no chance to gain any momentum down the stretch. But in saying that, we had to look forward. It is still a very, very, very long season. But the Hawks are squared up against the Timberwolves, who are just one game over 500, still have players like Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, great surprises on that basketball team too. It is also important to note that Trae Young is still listed as questionable going into this game. So if the Hawks have to play yet again without Trae Young, we're just going to have to hope that over this weekend, Quinn Snyder really glued this team together and taught them how to play fluent basketball. Because Mike Conley, the experienced veteran playmaker, is going to be hard to stop when dishing out to great three-point shooters like Dante DiVincenzo. And, of course, you can't forget about Rudy Gobert standing in the paint. It's going to make it difficult for players like Trae Young, if he plays, to find outlets to lob it up to Clint Capella. So the Hawks definitely have their backs against the wall. But the Timberwolves are only 4.5-point favorites. It's still anybody's basketball if Trae Young gets back on the court and we see Trae Young play the version of basketball we've seen this year. Oh, sorry. I thought Jordan was getting ready to say something.
Guys, I've noticed something. So we play on Monday, and why do we keep getting snubbed on Christmas?
You know what? What really, John, you bring up a great point. What really irritates me is the one time in my life that I have seen the 2 or 3 years ago when we played at the Knicks, and
it was COVID year.
And guess who didn't play?
Trae Young.
And we got slapped around. And I hate it because I would love to see this version of the Hawks play on Christmas Day. I would absolutely love it.
It was Cody year. It was Cody year, and we had no fans. So
yeah.
It wasn't a true Christmas game.
It
you know?
wasn't.
Yeah, I know. Like I think the NBA needs to see a Trae Young Hawks versus Luka and the Mavericks. Like we need that on Christmas. That's the perfect Christmas game.
I mean,
Those are always bangers.
We already had that Mavs and Hawks games earlier in the year, and though we lost that game, that was an instant classic. That was a fantastic game to watch. And every time Trae Young and Luka, Hawks and Mavs face each other, it's always a banger, man. So seeing that on Christmas Day would be magical.
Yeah, can we talk about this since we're talking about Christmas? And John, I want your input on this because I'm pretty sure you're just as pissed off about it as me and Chase are. But why in the world did Adam Silver get rid of the Christmas jerseys? Why? Tell me why.
I don't.
Why did you take that away from us? It makes no sense.
I don't know. I mean, they were nice. I mean, they were nice. Let's be honest. They were pretty clean, but like I don't know. Maybe maybe the material like from the jerseys like weren't comfortable for the players, but like I don't know.
Hey, you know what? Since we're on the topic of Adam Silver, I think this would be, unless y'all have any other comments you want to talk about this episode, I think this would be a pretty neat way to end the podcast.
I do have one thing I want to say before you get into that, if you don't mind. It's going to be really quick. I just want to ask y'all a question.
Sure.
Did any of y'all see the disgraceful Milwaukee Bucks NBA Cup championship banner?
No, it wasn't even
I
just.
haven't seen it yet.
You have to, John, after this, John, right now, go on your phone and look up the Bucks NBA Cup banner.
Joiner, I'll say this right now. While you're looking it up, I bet you I could go on Microsoft Word and create a more interesting banner than what you're about to look up.
Give me 30 seconds and I will make the exact same thing. All I need is 30 seconds.
It's literally just like tissue.
That's what it sucks.
It sucks. It's a white banner in the most basic font, black lettering that says Milwaukee Bucks 2024 NBA Cup champion. With a little line underneath.
Do you know what it reminds me of? John, did you ever watch The Office?
Yeah, who was in The Office?
Okay,
Yeah.
do you remember that episode when they were making that party for Phyllis and Dwight was in charge and he made that birthday sign
I knew it.
that says it is your birthday and it was in black and white? That's what it reminded me of. It's like Dwight Schrute was in charge of making that NBA banner.
Do you know
that's what we got.
Do you know what's worse about it? Did you know that they did the banner unraveling when the two teams were warming up? They didn't do a specials presentation. They didn't line the teams up. Fans were still walking the stadium. I kid you not, just in the middle of warm-ups, they decided to release the banner. There's no special presentation. There it is. I mean, it was. I mean, I know it's the NBA Cup. It's not like the NBA Finals. But come on, like at least
this happened. Like, are we glad that we lost like to the Bucks, or are we still like a little salty?
I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm salty because we put up a good fight.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, come on, at least act like you're excited. Even if you're not, at least act like it.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah. But yeah, no, like I'm gonna be like no. I think I did see it. I just wasn't paying attention to it. But yeah, no, like it's almost like they put. It's almost like they spent their $500K that they get when you win and they spend on that.
Yeah,
like you're a multi-millionaire like team. Like spend more money on that. Come on.
Yeah. That I mean, dude, I don't even know what to say.
It was disgraceful.
But do y'all have any final comments you'd like to make before the end of the episode? Because I do have one subject matter I want to bring up. But if y'all have any comments you want to say beforehand, I'll go ahead and give y'all the opportunity.
I sent y'all a thing about Kyle Korver and an NBA draft prospect earlier today.
Oh shoot! I don't think I saw that. Hold up.
It's a Twitter link, I think.
Hang on, let me pull that up real quick. So we were playing basketball earlier. Did you text while we were playing basketball?
No. It's certainly like this morning.
Oh damn! I don't know. Oh damn! I must have missed it. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Has no light. He stayed at the house. Whoa.
And this guy is 7'2". He's a center.
7'2".
Dude, his head doesn't even fit in the picture.
dog.
Dude. Hey,
And
you know that I knew we brought Kyle Korver in the front office for a reason, man.
yeah,
Kyle
Yep.
Korver's got that personnel.
He's gonna find the second coming of Zeus.
yeah. I mean, so if we do end up trading Capella, I say we draft him, even though we don't really need him. We could use him.
Could you imagine him and a Kongwu? How nasty of a center duo that would be?
Woo, baby.
I mean, like a Kongu 6'9", this dude 7'2". I don't see a world where we don't start him over a Kongu.
Oh,
and that
oh,
would
yeah.
be disrespectful.
No, I would keep a Kongwu on the bench, but I mean, just because I mean we had that monstrosity starring at center, and then when he needs a rest, we have a good center like a Kongwu behind him. That would be a nasty pairing right there.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, I just saw that on Twitter. I was like, wow, this dude like has built a relationship up with Corver for the past couple of years, and I would love to have him.
Oh, I would too, man.
Come down Atlanta.
That'd be, dude. We would love to have you, man. I mean, I like Landry Fields. I like his vision he has with the Hawks. I like his relationship he's grown with Quinn Snyder and how he's really just trusted. Because I mean, the thing with the Atlanta Hawks, I've said this before. We've had so many head coaching switches for the last couple of years. I think we finally found our guy in Quinn Snyder. He's a guy that I trust to take the ship and bring the Hawks to championship contenders. But I do want. I would like to end the podcast with this conversation right here, because this is a problem I've been a growing concern I've been seeing throughout the NBA. I've seen a lot of NBA fans comment on this typical concern. Adam Silver has even came up with a plan to end this problem, and he and a lot of NBA fans agree that the 3-point shot has become such a problem in the NBA because there's just a ridiculous amount of threes in every NBA game, and it's kind of ruining, a lot of people say, the art of basketball. And I mean, listen, me particularly, I have enjoyed this NBA season so far. I do see what they're saying, but I don't see it as a major issue. But Adam Silver thinks it's an issue, and one of his plans to combat this issue is he wants to eliminate the corner three. And what he means by this is to extend the arc kind of from the top of the key and kind of go like this, kind of still create that arch, but then have it go out of bounds. So that way, if you decide to shoot from the corner, it's just a 2-point shot. And I think he's hoping to do that because, I mean, the corner three is one of the most common 3-point shots in the league. So he's hoping by eliminating that it would take away the ridiculous amount of 3-point shots we're seeing in a typical NBA game. Now, this isn't anything that's set in stone. This is just an idea that he's presented. But, Joyner, I just want your thoughts on that. Do you think that would be good for the NBA, or do you think that's just absolutely stupid?
I mean, like, as someone who likes high scoring games, that's stupid. I'm sorry, that's dumb.
I kind of agree with you, Joyner. I mean, I don't mind him trying to find a way to limit the threes, but if you're gonna do it, I think that's ridiculous. I agree with you, Joyner.
He's focused on the wrong thing.
He is.
And look, Adam Silver, look, I understand that the ratings are at right now one of the lowest it's been in like the past 30 or so years. I think is what the statistic said. The ratings are falling. I get people are aggravated about how the 3-point game. I think the game between the Thunder and Bucks in the NBA League
Cup final.
The NBA League Cup final. I think that's the game that really spotlight the problem that the league has with being so reliant on the 3-point, because that game almost, I think it did set the record for most threes combined in an NBA game. Attempted, not made, attempted. So yes, there is an issue that you have to address, and it has to be, improved in some manner, but completely changing the archetype of the court is not the way to do it. The reason why your ratings are falling, Adam Silver, is because you're making the games impossible to watch. Because if you don't have a television package that gives you the local channels that you want, you have to spend a buttload of money just to be able to watch your team. That is something that the NFL, MLB, heck, even college football has made very, very
So is NFL with Red Zone.
or if you want to talk about other leagues, talk about NHL and MLS. The NHL, you can literally, for people who like soccer, you can watch any MLS game you want for just a small fee.
It's $10 a month. That's $120 every year.
Exactly. But for like the NBA, you got to spend like near $50 every like 2 months. The NBA League Pass is the dumbest watchable. And another thing that Adam Silver needs to really hone in on is, I'm going to take the mic for this. Adam Silver, fix the NBA All-Star game. Forget just the game. Fix the entire weekend. It is dumb. It is stupid. It is not even fun to watch.
The only fun thing to watch is a three-point contest. The dunk contest is an absolute atrocity to the game. And the All-Star game is pitiful. It's pitiful.
And if you want your players to care about it, give them a reason to care about it. Go back to East versus West. Go back to the traditional dunk contest rules. Go back to when it was beautiful. Because honestly,
he ruined a good thing.
Honestly, the NBA, the dunk contest hasn't been good since the Eric Gordon and Zach LaVine showdown. Ever since that, it has been absolute garbage.
I mean, like, I will say this about the dunk contest. Like, I mean, like, you can only get creative with a dunk like so many times before you repeat the same stuff. Like, I mean, like you've already had people dunk over cars. You've already had people dunk over mascots. Like, what else can you do? I mean, like the body can only do. The body can only like rotate like so many times.
Yeah. And you know what? To the All-Star game, I did want to mention, do you remember how fun the COVID year All-Star game was? When it was, no, it was the what year Kobe died, when they did the Kobe tradition, when they added 24 points to the final score. They said first of this score wins. That was the most entertaining All-Star game I think I've ever watched,
because they were playing like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
And you know there was a fight. Remember it got so intense. There was an argument at the end of the game. Now I'll say this. I'm going to propose this idea to Adam Silver. This is a way you can make the All-Star game a little more interesting. And I want to credit the MLB for what they used to do, but for whatever dumb reason they took this idea away. The MLB's All-Star game used to be that the winning team of the All-Star game got home field advantage in the World Series. And I think the way the MLB All-Star game used to work, of course, it's the American League versus the National League. Yeah. What it used to be is the winning team. Let's say the National League won the All-Star game. That would mean that whatever National League team went to the World Series, regardless of record, regardless of seeding, they would get home field advantage for the World Series since their league won the All-Star game. So imagine if the NBA did the same thing, that go back to East and West, the winner of the All-Star game gets home court advantage for the NBA Finals. So whether, let's say, the Eastern Conference won the finals this year, and the Hawks, as the 6th seed, won the Eastern Conference, and the Thunder, as a 1 seed, won the Western Conference. Though the Hawks had the lower seed, because the East won the All-Star game, the Hawks get home court advantage for the finals. It's just a little small sentence that I think would add more to the game, and because it's going to be the top stars representing the conferences, players on teams who actually have a shot of making the finals, it might give them a reason to actually try a little harder for the All-Star game. It's just an idea. I think it's an idea that could work because it worked for the MLB game. I mean, the All-Star game for the MLB is a little different because it's kind of hard to mess around. You kind of have to try for it to be entertaining. But I remember back when the winner used to get home field advantage for the World Series, it used to be some of the best All-Star games I've ever watched because they had something to play for. And I think a similar idea could work in the NBA.
I don't think I can agree with that because, like, I mean, because like having like, so would this be like home field advantage for the entire series or just the first couple games?
No, I'm sorry. So no, it wouldn't be like you get home court advantage the whole NBA Finals. But let's say the Hawks as a 6th seed won the East and the Thunder as a 1 seed won the West, it would be like your typical home court advantage. So the Hawks would get the home court the first 2 games. The Thunder would get the next 2. The Hawks game 5, Thunder game 6, and Hawks game 7. So it's like your traditional home court advantage, except it would just go to whatever the league won the All-Star game. So it's not like you're getting home court advantage the whole series. It's just you get it the first 2 games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that you clarified that, okay. So now that you clarified yeah, that would be nice, especially if they the lower seed, like let's say for the West, maybe let's say Sacramento gets in. And makes it run to the finals, which they probably should have done in 2023 since they almost beat the Warriors in that series. Let's say they make it to the finals as a 5 or 6 seed, and the and Boston repeats and goes back to the finals. And Sacramento gets the first 2 games at home, even though they're a lower seed. Yeah. Yeah, then I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I think it's a way that can maybe add a little more incentive, and I think it could push the players to try a little harder, because that's the reason the All-Star game's so bad, is the players just genuinely don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta give them a reason to play for it.
I mean, but like also this though, like basketball is a very physical. It's not as physical as like football, obviously, but like I mean, but like non-contact injuries are very common. For basketball, so maybe they don't try. I mean, cause maybe so maybe they don't try. So that way, like guys like LeBron or KD, guys who are very detrimental to the success of their team, don't get hurt. I mean, because LeBron's like almost 40. I mean, he'll be 40 this month. I believe. So you don't want to get a torn ACL or like during the All-Star game when you need him the second half of the season. So like maybe that's the reason why they don't play as serious.
I mean, yeah, it definitely takes a toll on your body, and I wouldn't expect like full on, like full contact, like hard, heavy defense, but I would expect a little more contest and not just these players watching the guy go right by him for an easy layup or an easy dunk. That's kind of what I would maybe expect.
Maybe that, or maybe just like instead of playing a full 12 minutes, maybe playing like 10 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that too.
Yeah, so you can play still play competitive, but play less minutes, so that way you're playing for a lot less.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's
my thoughts. That's my thoughts.
But yeah, so I guess we'll reach in the end of the podcast. So I guess before we end, does anyone else have any closing comments they'd like to make?
No, I think
I'm good. I think I'm good.
That was a good.
Yeah.
All right.
Good way to wrap up the podcast, talking about something that's been a big issue circling Adam Silver's job and just the NBA fan base as a whole.
We'll be keeping an eye on what maybe the NBA might do in terms of that, but especially on the Atlanta Hawks for this upcoming week. Like I said, 3 home games this week, the Timberwolves on Monday, the Bulls on Thursday, and the Heat on Saturday. So when we come back for episode 9, we'll recap how those games go. Hopefully we'll be ecstatic, talking about how the Hawks went 3-0 down the stretch, 3-1 in this home stretch, but we'll see. But as always, I'm Chase with Andrew and Jordan. We want to thank you for tuning in for this podcast once again, and we will see you next time.
First of all, have a very, very Merry Christmas.
I'm sorry.
Merry Christmas, guys. Yeah.
This would be our last episode until after Christmas.
You're right.
So we hope you guys enjoy the holidays. Spend time with your friends and your family, and just enjoy Christmas Day. And then when we see you on Sunday, we'll get back to business.
Absolutely, baby.
Yes, sir.
Peace from the Peach Town.
Peace out.